What's going on, everybody? I hope and pray y'all are just doing incredibly well. So, on this video, I want to talk about what next, right? So, you heard me talk about having conversations with sellers, make them the offer, how to get the contract. Let's say you got the contract, you found the end buyer, then what, right? And I will say, that this video was sparked by one of our corral members that's in the community, that's in the mentorship. So they joined the corral less than 30 days ago, and within 30 days got their first property under contract, found an end buyer, and got it assigned for $15,000. And so they sent me an email like, hey, Clifford, what's next? What am I supposed to do? My end buyer wants to move forward. And so let's talk through steps, because there are some small little tedious steps that you need to take along the way. All right. Number one, too, and let me say this, let me kind of back up. This isn't just a self plug because of the corral, although we are the absolute best community on the planet, the most impactful community on the planet. Listen, when y'all are joining communities and mentorships, you need to make sure that you're a part of a community that doesn't just throw you on 100 Zoom calls. You want to be a part of a community where you have some type of access to your coach and mentor, where you can get the right guidance to get out here and actually start closing deals. Okay. But let's say you get your contract. Now, the next thing that you need to do is you need to send over what is called an assignment of contract. This is typically a one-page paper. Okay. You can get these off of Google, etc. Right. So once you have your one-page paper, this is basically stating that, hey, I'm assigning my contract between me and the seller to me and the new buyer for a set fee. Okay. And that's what's going to be on the contract, the new price. So say, for example, if they got that property under contract at 150, they made $15,000 on it. So they sold it to the end buyer for 165. Okay, here's a couple things to know that are important. Your end buyer may ask to see the original contract. Okay, do not freak out, do not panic. This is a part of the process, right? And I want you to think about this from their perspective. Think about what we're doing. We are literally assigning a contract. They're about to sign a legal agreement stating that they're going to hereby whatever is agreement y'all agreed to with that seller, right? So if somebody was finna assign a contract over to you, would you not like to know what's on that contract, right? What if that contract says that there's a tenant in place and you have to let the renter stay in there for 6 months for free, right? You might want to know that, right? And so these are things that are important. So don't freak out. They may ask to see the original contract. In fact, 99% of the experienced end buyers are going to ask this. Anytime I'm dealing with a buyer that doesn't ask to see the original contract, that typically lets me know that I'm dealing with a newer contract. All right. So once you have that assignment contract, and if they ask to see the original, you send it over to them. The next thing is you want to make sure that you get a non-refundable deposit. This is a $5,000 deposit. Okay. So, period. This is to make sure that they have skin in the game. This is to make sure that they're going to be moving forward with your property. Because what if you have a seller where they're facing foreclosure and then you only have a couple of weeks, and then for whatever reason they back out, your end buyer backs out? Well, now you're left hanging high and dry. At least this way, if you make $5,000, you can do whatever you want to do with it. If you want to split it with the seller, you can. If you need to try to extend your option period, you can use that as kind of a leverage per se. So let's say I was scheduled to close with a seller and then my end buyer backs out. It has happened. It doesn't happen all the time because most end buyers don't want to lose $5,000. But anywho, I'll go to the seller and say, hey, Mr. Seller, it looks like we had some issues with some funding and we're just not going to be able to close this week. Is it any way that we can extend our closing for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. If they give me any pushback or kickback, I'll say, hey, I'm more than willing to pay $1,000 non-refundable deposit down because that's coming out of that 5,000, right? So now they're more than willing to give me that extension, right? Especially if you're willing to put $1,000, $2,000 down. So once I have that established and understood, when they sign the assignment contract, I send it to the title company with an email between me, the title company, and the end buyer. Okay. We send that email and say, hey, title company, my title company, their escrow officer's name is Michelle. So I'll say, hey, Michelle, Clifford here. Please see attached is the assignment of contract for property 123 Main Street. The end buyer is also copied on this email. They will need wiring instructions to wire the $5,000 deposit down. They should be sending that within 24 hours. This is very, very important. You want to make sure that that money goes through the title company, goes through the title attorney. You do not want to be taking any money in your hand, okay? I've seen situations, not often, but it has happened, to where they go and they collect this $5,000 deposit, and then let's say for whatever reason, the title isn't able to provide you with a clear title, okay? And so now that is the only reason they get their money back, because it's not any fault of their own, right? If the title can't close, the title can't close. And so they get their money back, right? Well, let's just say you go and you get that $5,000 and you go celebrate a little bit too early with, a decent steak dinner and a good bottle of bourbon. Well, now the title comes back and says you can't clear. Now you're responsible for getting them their $5,000 back. And you don't want that. Okay. So I send that email over to the title company. They have the email, they have the assignment contract, they have the wire instructions. Now, the next step is after that, we schedule close. The title company isn't going to be the one to say, okay, we're going to close on this date. No, you still are in the middle of that, okay? You still have to coordinate that. So now what I'm doing is I'm hounding the title company. Hey, do we have clear title? Are you ready to clear? Are we clear to close? Then I'm also reaching out once I know that we have clear title. I'm going to pick a date, let's say Tuesday. I'm going to say, hey, end buyer, it looks like we're ready to close on Tuesday. Does that work for you? I'm also calling the end buyer. Hey, we have clear title. They can close Tuesday. Do you need a mobile notary, or are you going to go in the office, right? So I'm trying to coordinate these things a little bit here. And so if the end buyer and the seller tells me that Tuesday works, I'm going to send an email to the title company and say, hey, both seller and buyer are available to close Tuesday. The seller's going to need a mobile notary, but the end buyer is going to come into the office, right? Let me know if you need anything from me, and they'll typically reach out to them and schedule it from there. But you do have to kind of take the initiative and get that along, because if you fall to the wayside, or if you fall to the back burner, guess what? So will your deal. And that's what you don't want. You need to stay on top of that stuff. And it's just these little bitty things right here that really go a long way on getting these deals closed and actually to the finish line. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope that this kind of gave you some clarity on what to do next once you get your contract signed. So let me know in the comments if this was helpful. Also, live 3-day masterclass coming up. Click on the link below in the descriptions. But I will see y'all there. Have a blessed one.